Hi, Dr. E. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. I recently heard you on Dr. Mindy Peld's podcast, and I just knew immediately you had to come on our show to talk about something we have never discussed on our podcast. I don't even think the word Enneagram has been mentioned once, but I just loved how you not only talked about how it's a tool for maybe understanding your personality or working through relationships, but really how you can use your tendencies and your strengths to work through personal growth and self-awareness, which is something that Marnie and I talk about on this show all the time. So I just really excited to share this topic that may or may not be new for our listeners today with everyone.
Well, I'm very happy to be here because anytime that I have an opportunity to share or to gift the Enneagram to people anywhere in the world, that's just the most amazing thing possible for me. And I'm just happy for us to just jump right in there and start talking about how the Enneagram can help to improve people's lives. Life does not have to be so hard. And with the Enneagram, I'm telling you, I've been married 43 years, and my husband and I talk about our marriage before the Enneagram and our marriage after the Enneagram.
It is interesting.
It's a night and day experience. Absolutely night and day. Really.
Well, we can't wait to dive into all this, but before we get into the Enneagram, one question we want to ask is, if you were to treat yourself to something today with absolutely no financial constraints, what would it be?
I could treat myself today with no financial restraints. I think it would be a home on the other side of the world. And I think it would be maybe located in Greece.
Oh,
That sounds amazing.
it sounds amazing. And we actually traveled last summer to Greece with my family, and it was amazing. And yeah.
I was in Mykonos not too long ago, and actually just found so much inspiration and also the warmth of the people. So, it would be to have that, to be able to return to that place without worrying about having a mortgage or
Yeah.
how much the light was going to cost me and all of those practical things that most of us have to be concerned about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of, and I felt like I could write there very well. That was another. That would be today. Tomorrow, it's going to be something entirely different.
Well, and that's the beauty of this question, right? It's a fun imagination question. So we would love to hear a little bit about your experiences, your pivotal moments, and like what influenced your career journey and led you to become an Enneagram expert and an author.
Well, it's a long journey.
And you can tell us in a nutshell so we can actually get to the Enneagram info.
It's a long journey, so I'm only going to take you through but so much of it. But I'm a native New Yorker. I was born and raised in New York. And my entire life, I have been drawn to the healing and helping profession. Even as a child, I was the one that would bring the kid home from school that nobody else wanted to talk to. And as I evolved, as a young girl, I was discovered. And so I started modeling when I was 10 years old. And that went on into my early 20s. And, I saw things going on even during that stage of my life that I knew just, particularly as it pertained to women, how we were treated and all of that just didn't sit well with me. And I struggled with trying to find my path towards being able to contribute and to make things better. So I pursued my degrees in psychology, and eventually I started my own business to do work in the field of bringing people together. I'm a real unity and belonging and connection person. That's what it's all about for me. So I did a lot of DEI work. I did a lot of team building, a lot of executive leadership work. And then I started writing because I discovered the Enneagram during the period of time when I was starting my business. And what I discovered, when I discovered the Enneagram, I really went deep into understanding what it means to do inner work. And that, once I discovered that, I recognized nothing is going to change for anyone if you're trying to do it from an external perspective. If you don't go deep down inside of yourself and find out what's going on with you, then you're going to keep getting the same results over and over again. There aren't going to be massive external shifts unless there are major internal shifts that take place within your own being. So that in a nutshell, I was born as a little, healer, connector, and I've stayed on that road ever since. And I love what I do.
It's always lovely hearing these journeys of our guests and how that brought you to where you are today. So can you talk? Let's dive in and talk about the Enneagram. I think social media has elevated the status of it and the popularity, but it's not something that just popped up in the last 10 years. It's been around for a long time. So maybe you can, share a little bit of that history and just kind of how it can start to serve us. And then at some point during this conversation, we would love you to dive into all 9 points, because I think it's really helpful.
One of the things that I can tell you about the Enneagram, I often say that it finds you rather than you find it. I very much believe that the Enneagram found me at a period of time in my life where I most needed it, because my role was guiding other people. And I also say that it's very difficult for you to take people on a journey that you've never been on. So the Enneagram inspired me to do my own work. Now, interestingly enough, even though I was a practicing psychotherapist at the time, all of the work that I did with psychotherapy, trying to help other people, I would get to a point where they would leave the space with me, and my question was always, how are they going to continue on their own journey? And once I found the Enneagram, it was like I had a roadmap I could give them. I call the Enneagram the blueprint to your soul. It's the operating manual that you wish you had been born with, but you weren't.
Yeah.
And so as a result, once you find this operating manual, it's like everything changes. Most personality archetypes and assessments deal with helping you to find your behavioral patterns. But the Enneagram helps you to discover why you do what you do. And that's key. It's about the motivation. It's the 9 different people who stand at 9 different points on the Enneagram can do the same action, but for 9 different reasons, because motivation is different. So when I think about the Enneagram, to give you a little bit of history, we don't know how old it is. There is the symbol we know predates Plato. Nobody really knows where it comes from. Now, that is the symbol that is ancient. And it is a psycho-spiritual personality archetype tool that helps you to find what your particular archetype happens to be. It came to the Western world over here in the 70s, and it came by way of the Jesuits. And you know what happens when you tell people not to share something. I think the Jesuits were all busy studying it, and finally they were told not to share it, and of course now it's mainstream. So It's that worry of keeping secrets. But anyway, the history is rich and deep, and that's not necessarily what people are going to be most interested in. What they're going to be most interested in is what it is. And what it is 9 distinct personality archetypes, and I describe them as energies. So do either of you have children?
Yes, we
Yeah,
each
we
have
both
3.
have 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Do all 3 of your children have the same personality?
Hell no.
Thank you. Okay. So you know that you can raise 2 or more humans in a household. They can be raised by the same humans, but they turn out and they evolve very differently. And you can kind of see it from day one. That first baby, if you're lucky, is so sweet and wonderful and loving and, just makes you so happy and is easy on you. And then that second one comes and says, oh no, I don't know what that one told you, but I'm a different kid. I'm going to keep you up all night. I'm never going to be happy with anything, and I'm going to be a real hellraiser. So you think to yourself, how in the world can this kid be so different from that one? They're being raised with the same values, with the same messages, what have you. But those messages, those values are landing differently. And that's because we believe that you're born with your Enneagram type. Now, second question that comes in for me then is, okay, so how soon can you tell your kid's Enneagram type? And I say, stop right there. Just stop right there, because kids can fool you. You need to give that child time to evolve and go through the different little energies that they may go through. And there's a point in time when you begin to see that personality really solidifying. And in doing the Enneagram with people, I have them go back in time to look at where they first could see evidence of their particular point on the Enneagram. So
Can I ask you a question? Can I break in here? So Stephanie and I were talking about this when we were doing the quiz on the website. I had a lot of trouble answering the questions because I could relate to so many of the answers, or there would at least be 2 that I really struggled to decide between. And I'm wondering, is everybody a set? This is your Enneagram, or are we mixtures of all of these different things?
Okay, so you have all 9 of those energies in you. In other words, if you think about, what it takes to create the personality of a whole human being, you have each one of these energies, as I call them, in you to a greater or lesser degree. But one of them leads, one of them dominates, one of them is home base. And so one of those energies happens to be what you would, what makes you do what you do. There's sort of a basic desire. There's a basic fear, that core motivation of why you do it. And the reason that you have difficulty with the test is because you evolve over time. The way you might have answered it when you were 25 versus the way you answer it 35 or 45 might be different. But what I always tell people when you're taking that test is to get very, just get very still and very present and think about your experience as it pertains to that question over the entirety of your life. But pay attention to how you would have responded pre-parenting, pre-therapy, pre all the behavioral changes and the belief that you had to become different versions of yourself. Because what the Enneagram is helping you get back to is your authentic self. And in order to do that, you've got to, silence the societal messages. You've got to silence what mom told you you had to be. You've got to actually tell that inner critic that we all have, sit down and be quiet for a minute.
Mhm.
I'm trying to find me. And in this particular moment, you're not helping. So be quiet. It's really, like I said, it's really an inner journey that you dive deep into. Does that help?
That's
It
Marnie?
does. I feel like I could take the test again and maybe it would come out differently knowing that. But I don't know. Like I was just, I don't know. I think I'd have to really like sit there with those questions and really think about the answers more thoroughly than I did when I took the quiz.
On one hand, you don't want to overthink it because once you start overthinking, you go into rationalization.
Yeah.
Eventually, what happens is, well, this is the right answer. As
Right.
Well, it's going with your intuition. It sounds like it's getting back, like getting out of your head and what you've been told, like you said, with programming and in society. And this is something we actually talk about quite a bit on this podcast, is like figuring out your authentic self. Like that is a big, it seems like in the last year, we've just talked a lot about that on this show. And this is kind of a tool then to validate some of that and understand yourself and have that acceptance and like the self-love. This is why I am. This is why I react, or this is why I'm motivated in a certain way.
the Enneagram is all about the authentic self. And what I do want to say to you, and I want to be fair to your listeners, it's a journey. It's a deep journey. Now, a lot of people, and we call them Enneagram enthusiasts, just people who find it and they just love it. And they think it's a lot of fun. And it can be a lot of fun because once you find out some things about yourself and other people that you're connected to, you find that you can laugh at some things that you might have before the Enneagram judged harshly, So it's a way to become over time more gentle with yourself and less judgmental of others. And that's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
However, getting there is a hike. It's really a hike. And as I was listening to you, Marnie, talking about, the test might come out differently if you take it again. Yes, it might come out differently, but what everyone needs to know is that the test is not definitive be all end all of determining your Enneagram type.
Mhm.
And the reason is because our capacity to be able to be totally honest with ourselves, to be truly authentic, is very limited. Because, we seek out these tools to try to help us become more authentic and to find our authentic self. But while we're taking that test, we haven't quite gotten there yet. So I always say, I'll say to people, if it's a multiple choice and it says, I am sweet, kind, mean, stingy, everyone's either sweet or kind. Nobody's mean or stingy. But you might be the meanest, stingiest person on the planet, but you're not seeing yourself that way.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is funny, because you know how we get ourselves dressed in the morning and you take that last look before you go out the door? You're seeing this, okay? But you could be a hot mess back here.
Mhm.
It could your hair could be ratted up in a section, or your blouse is not completely tucked into your skirt, or whatever it is. You have no idea what's going on back there. That's what I said the Enneagram does for you. It gives you the full view of who you are and how you're showing up in the world. And I can share with you, when I first discovered my Enneagram point, the one that dominates for me, I curled up in a little ball and I just sobbed.
Oh,
I just cried. It was like I stand at point 1 on the Enneagram.
I was just going to ask you. Yeah.
And that's all about doing the right thing, being a good person. And, there's an element before you do the work of being a good person and making other people be good people. almost by any means possible. So you're constantly working on yourself. You're trying to have this strong moral compass, which actually ones do have a strong moral compass, but ones can also have what I call very limited peripheral vision. It's the right thing to do through my lens, which might not be the right thing to do through your lens. Stephanie, if you and I swap glasses, neither one of us would see very well. We don't have identical prescriptions. But the reason it was hard for me was that I could see so many situations where I thought I was being helpful, where I might have been being hurtful. Where my trying to help could have been received as criticism, always finding something wrong. And if you're constantly trying to correct someone, then the message that you're sending to them is you're broken. Who wants to send that message to someone that they love?
So interesting, because you think about dynamics with relationships and how this plays out. And I'm not a one. I mean, I've taken this test a couple of times and I don't come out very high in the ones, but there are many tendencies that I have, especially with my relationship with my immediate family, my husband and my kids, where I definitely have those tendencies that you just mentioned.
It would be interesting. Did you get different results every time you took it?
Well, I have a printout of when I did, like this was in 2021, one of the first times I took it. And then I took your test, which we can dive into, and I came up more dominant in 8, where the first time it was like my third one was an 8. So I don't know. This kind of gets to Marnie's point earlier. There were many questions that I could have picked the answer, many responses that resonated with me.
Right. And those responses matter. As I tell people all the time, the quiz that's on my website, it's a starting place. It puts you in the right neighborhood, but not necessarily your perfect house.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that would be helpful to explain now about the Enneagram is it really does help us to understand that we have 3 centers of intelligence, not just one. So we think that all of our intelligence comes from the brain, but we also have not just, brain intelligence, we have the intelligence and the wisdom of the heart. And then we have that thing you were just talking about, that intuitive, and that's really the wisdom of the body that culminates in the gut, the belly center. So this will be fascinating for you and you'll love this. You know how sometimes you have to make a decision about something in life and you're standing right there on the precipice of trying to determine whether you're going to go left or you're going to go right. And you're there because it's all kind of a meh, I don't even know if I want to make this decision. Well, what's going on there is you don't have what I call the full body yes for this thing as to whether or not you want to do it. And usually when that's happening, it comes down to 1 or 2 of your centers are offline. Either it's something that you're overthinking in your head and you haven't really filtered it through your heart. And then the wisdom of your body or your intuitive center has not told you, yeah, this is the way to go. This is what you should do. Now, an example of that would just be, first of all, you can go back into your dating days in terms of whether or not you wanted to continue seeing a certain person. And your heart said yes, because that person looked kind of good to you and you enjoyed, spending time with them. But your head said, this person is really bad for you. It's really bad, and you just left out your gut altogether. You did not allow your whole being to be informed by the wisdom of your gut. Just like with the raising of 3 children, there are times when, and we call it mother's intuition, but everybody's got an intuitive center. You recognize that one of your kids is not where they told you that they were going to be, and you just want to kind of go with that, but you let it go. If you stop in that moment and you say, I just have a feeling that one of the, this one is not where they said they were going to be. And my heart is beating fast, and I'm really feeling a feeling of anxiety around what's going on here. And my head is saying, yeah, this is something I need to check out. Well, your head's saying, this is something I need to check out because that's what your gut's speaking to you. The anxiety and your heart racing and your heart kind of hurting because you think they may be in some kind of trouble. That's your heart engaging sort of emotionally and letting you know this is something I need to really be paying attention to. And then your head kicks in and gives you the plan, says, go home. Go home and see what's going on. For most of us, we can always look back at a time when we didn't pay attention to the messages that were being sent. And it is my personal belief, and a lot of Enneagram teachers will share this, that when we don't make good decisions, it's because one of our centers or two of our centers were just offline. We were walking around, we were all in our heads, or we were all in our feelings, or we were all in, this just feels off for me. But it is the alignment of our head, our heart, and our gut that allows us to move from the place of, I don't know, to this is a full body, yes, I'm doing this. And I think just that's a really important thing for us to understand about how we operate as humans. So
that was really helpful because we talk about intuition and gut a lot, but we haven't really connected the three centers like you just described. So can we get into these 9 points so I don't want to run out of time here, and just give the highlights of, kind of the characteristics. And then I know you talk about, some of the tendencies, and I don't want to say this in a negative way. I can't think of the word I know you use.
Well, I talk about let's just talk about it as the high side, the high vibration and the low vibration.
Yes,
okay?
That's what I meant. Yep.
One of the reasons that I wrote Enneagram Made Easy was to demystify some of the language that is confusing. And I'm not going to put that confusing language out there, particularly for people who don't know the Enneagram. So going through the types, there are 3 types in each of the centers that I just talked about. So there are 3 types in the body center, 3 types in the heart center, and 3 types that reside in that center. Now, we start with the gut or the body center, which is, the foundation. So type 8, 9, and 1 are in the body center, the gut. And type 8, we call the challenger. That's the person who basically, I say tattooed on their forehead is don't mess with me.
I came out as a type 8, which is kind of funny. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but that is on the quiz. That's what I came out as.
Okay. Well, a little bit about type 8s. I love the strength, the dedication kind of to loyalty. They give loyalty and they expect loyalty in return. Can walk into a room like they own it. Can absolutely express and to give off the energy of confidence and I got this, and why are you people just sitting around doing nothing? There's something to be done. That hill needs to be charged. Let's charge that damn hill. Why are we just sitting here? And real annoyed, really annoyed by the people who are just sitting around doing nothing when there's a hill that needs to be charged. God's sake.
Or dishes to be cleaned, and you're sitting on the couch. I mean,
like, who has time for TV? Come on. Like,
totally.
Get with it.
Let's crack that whip. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And another thing about eights that many people don't love, but I happen to enjoy it. An eight's going to tell it like it is. Not going to sugarcoat it. For some people, the conversation that they're having with an eight would call a conversation. The person who's the recipient of it might call it a confrontation, because energy is strong. It's very strong and it's very powerful. And the reason that eights can sometimes be seen as having kind of a thorny, tough exterior is because they're protecting a very soft heart. So while they're tough as nails, inside there's a gooey marshmallow center that they don't want you to get to. But if you see eights with people that they love, there's this softness that is just wonderful to behold. Does that sound like you, Marnie?
Not all of it, but a chunk of it, yeah.
Okay, well, hang on to it. Right next to now, the anger of the eight looks like rage. I mean, when an eight is pissed off, it's not this calm sort of, let me have a discussion with you about this. An eight, really can really let that fire in the belly come out. So that's kind of our eight in a nutshell.
And I don't feel like I have a lot of rage. So like at all. Okay.
So there's a lot of there's several other types that have some of those eight qualities. So hang on, stay on the ride. Right next to eight is the 9 that we call the peacemaker. And the 9 is that person who tattooed on their forehead is, can't we all just get along? Really? Seriously, I really mean that, 9s want to have peace. They want to have internal peace for themselves, but they can't have peace for themselves if there's not peace around them. So 9s want to be at peace, and they want everybody around them to be at peace. The beautiful thing about 9s is even though they are conflict averse, they don't like conflict, they can mediate conflict beautifully because their desire for peace allows them to come into a mediation without any agenda other than creating peace, whereas everybody else wants what they want in the particular conflict that's going on. 9s are laid back, easygoing, kind of procrastinate, put things off that sometimes need to be done, don't like to look at things that are going to disturb their peace. Most 9s have a cave. And that cave can be a room in the house where when they go in there, leave them be, or it can be their car, might sit in the driveway for 30 minutes before coming in. But the peace has to be in the environment and within the 9. 9, because they're in the body center and anger is the overarching theme there, can also be very angry, and that I call them the volcanoes, because this peaceful, approachable, kind person can erupt and very, very, blunt in what they say and feel. And it's like, what happened to this sweet, kind, approachable person? But they have a point at which, the anger may come out because they're tired of listening to you whine and disturbing their peace is what it comes down to. So that's kind of the 9 in a nutshell. And then we move to the 1, also in the body center. 1s, I talked about a little bit before, right? How hard is it to do the right thing? Just do the right thing is what 1s are all about. Wanting to be good, wanting to be make a contribution. I always say I actually call the 1s the idealist. Most of the books you'll see 1s called reformers, but I kind of updated the language a little bit. At point 1 is this sort of constant need for improving oneself, and like I said, improving everyone, systems, people, things that are wrong. The eye of a 1 you can go into a beautifully decorated home, and the eye of the 1 might go straight to the picture that's crooked, and walk over and correct it. So that's kind of the 1s. And the anger of the 1 is My little nickname for that is the switchblade tongue, because basically ones can slice and dice with the words, but still maintaining composure. It's like, I'm just going to kind of tell you about yourself because I've tried the gentle way. It didn't work. So now let me just speak. Let me just speak to you. My children used to say, Mom, just beat me. Don't give me the lecture. Just beat. I'm like, I'm not going to beat you. You're going to sit here and listen to this lecture. So
that's funny.
body center, action. The action, the energy, is moving to action in some way, shape, or form. The heart center 2, 3, and 4. 2s are all about love. And on the forehead of the 2 is, I love you, do you love me? So 2s want to give love and receive love in return. It's kind of a give to get thing, but 2s don't always know that. That's why, looking for love in all the wrong places can sometimes happen for 2. They'll go out of their way to be kind and loving to people sometimes that they don't even like. And just being there, being your person, being the one that's going to do kind things for you, until they get fed up with you. And then that's a whole nother story. That's the downside. But 2s are the givers, the helpers of the world. A lot of people in the helping professions would be at point 2. At point 3 are the achievers, ambitious. They're going to be the best. They're going to always look to stay in that position of being the best. Real competitors, sometimes they compete with themselves just to maintain the value of being the best. Work themselves very hard, don't know how to relax easily, and tattooed on their forehead is, do you see my success? The world know that they brought it,
I know a lot of people like that, actually. It's funny.
Well, we in the United States, we are a 3-8 country,
Interesting.
Yeah, we value ambition and success, and defined in the more materialistic way, and also we value the strength of the 8. So we look at that. And different countries, organizations, teams have a personality as well. So that's also interesting. At point 4, we have what we call the creatives. And these are the people that kind of hold the beauty in the world at a price. On the forehead of a 4 is tattooed, am I truly authentic? 4s don't want to sell out. They don't want to play our little games. They want to be unique and authentic. They want to be true to themselves. We call them the holders of the beauty of the world because they kind of hold the suffering of the world. Most of us try to release it. 4s hold it, and they keep a reservoir of sometimes painful experiences and painful energy, but they dip into that to create beauty. Many of our great artists, musicians, authors have the 4 archetype. So 4s have a lot of melancholy. They don't want to be you. They don't want to be me. They want to be who they are. And they don't want you trying to, force them to be something else. If you have a child like that, that begins to show up pretty early. You can see that. And sometimes, not all 4s, but the majority of 4s carry melancholy, just this sort of sadness that you can actually feel. So that's the heart center, 2, 3, and 4. And then finally we get to the head center, 5, 6, and 7. 5s called the investigators, and tattooed on their forehead is, I want knowledge. I want knowledge. If you asked a 5, you want all the money in the world, or do you want all the knowledge in the world? That's not even a question for them. Usually not very materialistic, but love to go deep. That's that person sometimes who comes over to you at a cocktail party and they strike up a conversation about something and you have no idea what they're talking about, but you look at them and think when they walk away because they realize you're not connected, all you can say is that was really deep. I don't know what it was, but it was really deep, So the fives look for the layers under the layers under the layers. I always say a five has to see how all things are connected. They look at where something begins, where it is now, where it's going in the future. And they can see the connections that, other energies cannot see in the same type of way. Also, fives can be a little socially awkward. So they don't necessarily find a way to fit in easily. And that's your five.
That's funny. When I did the test for the first time, I'm just looking at the results. The last archetype was 5 for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was at the very bottom, which based on what you just described.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. At point 6, we have the loyalist. On the forehead of the loyalist is tattooed, "I'm prepared." And so what's lovely about point 6 is that's where you find the people who actually, they have something called worst case scenario thinking. So they can always see what might go wrong, and that's a gift and a curse, I think if I could always see what might go wrong, I might just stay in bed. But because of that ability to think things through to a deeper level, particularly in terms of what might not work, you have people who do pay attention to the details and ask a lot of questions and who are looking for the people who really have the right answers, sort of that ultimate truth. Who has that? And they want that in their lives. They want to not make mistakes, not get it wrong, not be caught unprepared for anything. And 6 like structure, and they create structure in the world. They create the categories and what you need in order for something to be brought through to completion. And in families, they're the ones that when the other family members sort of punk out when mom or dad needs some care, the 6 has already made a plan for who's going to do what when in order to keep things going and moving along. So I often refer to the 6 as the last human standing. It's going to be there and not going to leave anyone behind and not going to let anyone get hurt. Not if they're in charge and they have to be prepared. And then finally we get to the 7, and usually if you're a 7, I've bored you up to this point and you're already gone, because the 7s are all about freedom and joy. So I honestly laugh because the Enneagram is usually taught this way in this order, and I think it's to torture the 7s to a certain extent. You get present, sit down, stay until you get to hear about yourself, or else you wouldn't be here with us. But 7s are the enthusiasts. On their foreheads is, "I've got to be free." And for the 7, it is all about paying attention to being able to actually stay above the monotony, the pain, the drudgery of life. It is about actually being able to have those exciting experiences, to switch up and not be confined. We talk a lot about, the different generations and how for the younger generations, it has not been about being loyal to a company and staying there and working 20 years. There's more of a 7 energy in the younger generation because they're on the move, and 7s are on the move. Something that's very interesting about 7s is that when you have, say, a natural disaster, sevens are very often first responders. There's that adrenaline surge. They actually do want to be helpful, and they can think and move very quickly. Sevens have more ideas before breakfast than most people have in a lifetime. I didn't say more good ideas, but I said more ideas. So there's a lot of innovative energy, a lot of willingness to try new things. In fact, I love trying new things. So sevens are very high energy and move through the world actually not wanting to be around people who bring them down. If you're one of those people that's always gloomy and always talking about what's wrong, seven's going to find another friend.
I can relate to the seven a lot, actually.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, there's a few of them I relate to, but
well, that's interesting because you could also relate to the eight, and 7 and 8 are right beside each other. Okay, and we have a concept called wings, which is you do have you will get some of the traits of the energy from the number on either side of your dominant point.
oh.
So, you may have a little 7 influence in your 8-ness or a little 8 influence in your 7-ness. The way I describe that is your dominant point is the main course.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of you are the side dishes. The main course is what you want to pay attention to and follow first. One other component of the Enneagram that we can't leave out is something that we call the instincts or the subtypes. And that is whether you are self-preservation, social, or sexual, sometimes known as one-on-one dominant. The subtypes and the instincts actually, they stack. So one of them is your dominant, one of them is kind of the middle one, and one of them is the one that is at the bottom, the one that you have the most trouble accessing. And those instincts, it's important to be able over your lifetime to be able to bring them in balance, but you will find that just like your Enneagram type, you have a dominant instinct. So and in each of the 9 types, the dominant instinct makes a difference in how the dominant point shows up. So a self-pres 8 doesn't look exactly like a social 8, doesn't look exactly like a sexual 8. In the shortcut to that, and it goes much deeper than this, self-pres, more concerned about all things that create their survival and their comfort, okay? Social, more concerned with is everything and everyone okay? And one-on-one sexual, intimacy and intensity. Am I getting the good stuff here? Where's the juice? So everyone has one of those on the top. For instance, I'm a social 1. Duh. Is everyone okay? What can I do to help get everybody okay? How can I go out into the world and make that a reality? So that's the mini turbo teach of the Enneagram. Not enough to do anything but maybe get people interested and to be able to dive deeper.
Well, this is awesome. Like, I learned more about this than I've ever known in the beginning. So I thought it was super helpful. And I'm wondering, if people want to dive deeper. Obviously, I did the quick quiz. I think Stephanie did the quick quiz. It sounds like she's done the full test. Where would you direct people that want to do the full test?
Here's what I'm going to say. I really prefer that people do some reading before they do the test. If you take the test first, then you're a little bit biased towards what you begin to look for and what you start to read about. If you do some reading and also even, look at videos and you get yourself familiar with all of the types, then and only then are you really able to land in your own energy. Human nature is to go towards what we wish we were, as opposed to going with what we really are. That's why we have so many people in the world going out creating version after version after version of themselves. Anyone who wants to truly get to the authentic self, stop creating versions. Go for the good stuff. Go for the reality of you were designed uniquely, authentically to be who you are. You're not supposed to be me. I'm not supposed to be you. So get to that. The way you get to that is by not biasing yourself by believing that you're going to be someone else.
I think that is such an excellent point and such good advice to give, because I'm in the middle of listening to your book, Enneagram Made Easy, and you just go through so much more detail and you give a lot of examples and even famous people examples. And I think because Enneagram has become more popular and people see what other people's numbers are and they're like, well, I want to be an 8 too, because I'm, whatever they have in their head, this notion. I want to go back and take the full thing after I'm finished with your book and see what I truly am. And also just to understand, we're all unique. We're all supposed to be different. And how do you use this as your superpower? And because there's so many positive traits for each one, I think people can then get comfortable with, who am I really at the core, and feel good about it versus trying to be someone else, like you said.
Well, and recognizing that we all have different strengths and we need all the numbers in the world for the world to go around, right? If we had all 8s walking around, it would be a problem.
It'd be a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be apocalyptic, I think.
Yeah. So I think that recognizing that is super important as you're tuning into your own authentic self.
Embrace those strengths that you have.
And the things that maybe aren't considered strengths, what does that look like for you? What are you going to do with that? How are you going to move forward in your life knowing this about you?
Yeah. We have 2 places that we go when we're under stress and when we're on a growth path. So that's why it's so important. If you're reading the book, there's lines and arrows, 1 point towards stress, 1 point towards growth. And one of the things that's important is to know what you look like when you're under stress and be able to call it out. And if you can do that, it's like, I'm stressed. I recognize these behaviors, but at this particular point, which is going to be a different number. So I'm a 1. When I'm at stressed, I go towards 0.4. I become a melancholy, feel sorry for myself mess. And I usually want an audience for my melancholy. So, if I'm crying in the bedroom, I'm going to come out in the hallway so my husband can hear me. Come on, let me get some attention. Give me some love. I have fabulous pity parties. But when I realize that I'm at that place, it's like, okay, I'm at 0.4. What else is at 0.4 for me that's not the low vibration of 4? What else is there is a creativity. Sometimes I need to sit my butt down and write. I need to just start journaling and write it out, what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing. And by the time I've written it out, I'm looking at it and I feel better. Or music. Music takes me from sobbing on the floor to doing, dancing like nobody's looking. In a heartbeat. I can just raise the vibration of my energy. That will move me over to 7, which is my growth point, where there is joy and there is freedom And I don't feel this burden of heaviness of doing the right thing, doing what I should do than what I want to do sometime. So that's the beauty of the fluidity of the system. It just shows us how to be able to make some of these shifts, but we've got to find what gets in the way. And it helps us by identifying some of the blocks that for each type, there's a different thing that really gets in the way. And once you can identify that and you know that you're there, then you can work with it. But you can spend your whole life never understanding what trips you up and what keeps you going around and around and around. Life doesn't have to be that hard. Just have to figure out where the pieces fit, how you are wired. Like if your computer goes down, you don't understand all the workings of it, but you know how to push the button and get it to reset. That's what the Enneagram helps you to do, to figure out where those reset buttons are and how to recognize when you need to do that before there's a crash that you can't come back from.
Yeah. Before you do something that you're going to regret potentially, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Dr. E, this has been amazing. I think this is such a good entry point conversation for our listeners to learn more. But for those that are interested, where can they find you? Where can they obtain your books, learn more? I think you're going to launch a podcast, all the things, and we'll link everything up in the show notes.
Okay, so the easiest way to find me is Deborah. Notice I said Deborah, Deborah, Egerton, 1G, EGERTON.com. There is a wealth of resources about the Enneagram on my website. I happen to be the president of the International Enneagram Association. So there's information about becoming a member of the IEA. And that's one of the things that I say to listeners. If you're going to do any work with a person on the Enneagram, the IEA can help you find qualified professionals to be able to actually help you through your Enneagram journey. We love creating community there. My book, Enneagram Made Easy, was written for people particularly who are new to the Enneagram and for people who know the Enneagram to have some guidance when they need to go back and review something. Or when you learn the Enneagram and you get excited about it, the first thing you want to do is hit somebody over the head and make them come along too. Just buy the book and lay it on the kitchen counter and walk away. Walk away. Resist the urge to try to force it on anyone. And I am launching a membership club. My 9 authentic self inner work journals are coming out on May 21st. And there will be an inner work authentic self journal club where I'm going to guide people through the process of doing the inner work, and they're individual journals for each type. So 1s will be working with 1s and 2s will be working with 2s, and they'll be able to come into community together. So I'm super excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot of resources, it sounds like, on your website, and we encourage our listeners to go check it out and dive deeper into this topic. I know I'm going to. So, Deborah, as we wrap up this conversation, what does the art of living well mean to you?
Living well, the art of living well to me really means making your contribution, understanding that humanity is a mosaic, and that you are a brilliant, shining part of that mosaic. You have a place where you fit and where you shine beautifully. And never being afraid of stepping into your space in the humanity mosaic, because it's when you occupy your authentic space then everyone who belongs around you can also occupy theirs. That's living well to me.
That was so eloquently said and just beautiful. Like I want to take that snippet and send it to my kids, especially my daughter. I think people need to hear that more because we're so used to wanting to fit in, especially with social media, and to be someone else.
All these young kids.
Yeah. I love that analogy, how you described it with mosaic. So
me too.
The podcast that is coming is Humanity Mosaic. Okay. And the art of, it's really exploring connection and belonging with Dr. E. And the reason I'm doing that is because really that is the biggest part of my mission. We all belong. We all belong authentically as we were created to be. And just, it's so exhausting the way social media has, in so many ways, given people this idea that they need to look or be or sound or behave like someone that is not at all part of authentically who you are. Because we really have to go on a deep dive, a deep exploration, and find what we are, who we are, how we are inside, in order to be able to let our brilliance shine in the world. And unlike anyone else's, we all have our own superpower. So let it shine.
What a wonderful way to end.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. I just really enjoyed this so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.